I told you, we don't serve beggars here." The plate hit the floor with a crash. Chicken and dumplings scattered across the diner tiles, steam curling up like ghosts. The room froze. Clara didn't. She stepped in front of the trembling old man, her apron spread like a shield between him and the fury behind the counter. Rain pounded the windows. The handful of customers looked down at their coffee cups, pretending not to hear. She reached into her pocket. "Then, take it out of my tips." Wayne Becker's face turned red. "That's not enough. You're fired. Get out." The next morning, as the first sunlight pierced the clouds, 200 soldiers stood outside that same diner. Full uniform. Silent. They didn't come for coffee. They came for her. Clara James was not the kind of woman people noticed. At 32, she had mastered invisibility. In Ridgefield, Kentucky, a town half abandoned after the factory closed, being quiet was a form of survival. She wore her brown apron like armor. Her ponytail was tight, her smile tighter. She opened Billy's diner before dawn. She closed it long after the neon flickered out. She didn't talk much, didn't ask for help, but she noticed everything. The dishwasher's unexplained bruises, the regulars who lingered over empty plates, the ones who came in out of the rain, asking only for water. And she noticed them because she'd been raised by a man who taught her to look deeper. Her grandfather, Henry James, a Korean War vet with a crooked back and an iron heart, had raised her when her parents disappeared into addiction. He taught her to sweep the porch, even if no guests were coming. "Honor's not loud," he'd say. "It's quiet. Like kindness no one sees." 3 years after his death, Clara kept that lesson tucked beneath her ribs like the dog tags under her bed. She lived in a cramped room above an auto garage with a one-eyed tabby named Smokey. Her savings were down to $64.38. One outlet sparked when she breathed near it, but she still woke at 5. She still walked through rain, and she still fed Smokey scraps of tuna when she could. Then came that Tuesday. The rain came sideways. The bell over the door creaked. Every head turned, then quickly turned away. A man stood there, soaked to the bone. His military coat was tattered, hanging heavy with water. A faded U.S. Army patch clung to one shoulder. His left leg dragged. His hands trembled as he removed a soaked knit cap. His eyes searched the room, not for a seat, but for permission. He didn't sit, just hovered beside a booth, one hand on the backrest. Clara crossed the room, towel still in hand. "Evening," she said gently. "Can I get you something warm?" The man kept his eyes low. "Just hot water, ma'am. And maybe a crust of bread, if it's headed for the trash." The words hit her like a memory. Her grandfather once told the same story. How a stranger fed him in Busan, 1952, on a night just like this. Clara nodded. Back in the kitchen, a returned plate sat under the heat lamp. Chicken and dumplings untouched. She plated it with fresh bread, poured black coffee, and carried it out like it was nothing special. "This was sent back," she said, sliding it in front of him. "Still hot." "I can't pay," he whispered. She smiled. "It's already paid for. And the coffee's on me." He stared at the tray like it might vanish. "You remind me of my wife," he said. "She believed everyone deserved warmth, especially those who'd lived through too much cold." Clara blinked hard. Across the room, the diner's owner, Wayne, had spotted them. His eyes narrowed. But Clara didn't care. She saw the man's pride in how he sat straight, how he didn't complain, how he chewed slowly like the food was sacred. And when he finished, he looked up with eyes that shimmered. "You saved a soul tonight, miss," he whispered. "Might be broken, but not forgotten." Then he pulled something from his coat, a rusted dog tag. "Name's Eli Turner. If I don't make it through the winter, I want someone to know I existed." He pressed it into her palm and disappeared into the storm. The bell above the door slammed. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Wayne's voice cracked like a whip. Clara didn't move. "He was a veteran," she said, voice steady. "Asked for hot water and bread. I gave him food that was going to be thrown away." "This ain't a charity," Wayne barked. "I've told you." "I know what you told me." Her voice was calm. "But I know what's right, too." She reached into her apron and clutched Eli's dog tag, and she stood tall. That's when the soldiers came. The next morning, 200 of them. Outside the diner, in full dress uniform. Silent. Unmoving. They weren't there to protest. They were there to honor her. Because Eli Turner wasn't just another homeless veteran. He was Sergeant Major Eli Turner, twice decorated. And someone had finally seen him. Clara James had always been invisible. But that day, the whole world saw her. Not for what she served, but for who she was. If people see us feeding street trash for free, they'll think we're a soup kitchen. Wayne's voice cut through the diner like a blade. A middle-aged couple in the corner went quiet, stirring their coffee with deliberate slowness. No one met Clara's eyes. No one said a word. Clara inhaled. Calm. Controlled. "I paid for the coffee," she said. "You can take it out of my tips." Wayne's palm slammed against the counter like a gunshot. "I said no," he snapped. "You just made me look soft in front of customers. You don't get to decide how I run this place." Then came the final blow. "You're fired. Right now. Pack your things and get out." He pointed to the door like it was a sentence. The room grew colder. Not from the rain outside, but from the silence. No one spoke up. No one said she was right. Not a single word in her defense. The woman in the corner leaned toward her husband and muttered, "That's what happens when you bring trouble inside." Someone cleared their throat, shifted in their seat, and went back to pretending the menu was more important than decency. Clara untied her apron, fingers trembling. She wasn't surprised. Not really. Disappointed? Yes. Hurt? Absolutely. But surprised? Number. The sting didn't come from Wayne's shouting. It came from the silence, from the way people can look straight through you when you do the right thing. She walked out into the downpour, canvas shoes soaked within seconds, hair plastered to her forehead. She held her bag close, but her back stayed straight, just like her grandfather taught her. Outside, under the diner's awning, she paused, heart pounding, lungs tight. She didn't cry. Not now. She needed to hear everything. Needed to stay aware. To stay standing. Then came a rustle. From the alley beside the diner, the old veteran reappeared. Eli Turner, hobbling toward her, slow but steady. His breath shallow, but his eyes alive with that quiet fire again. "I saw what happened," he said. "I shouldn't have let you pay a price for me." Clara shook her head. "You didn't do anything wrong." He reached into his coat, pressed something into her palm. His dog tag. "You just saved a shattered soul, child," he whispered. "You reminded me I wasn't invisible." Before she could respond, he turned and disappeared once more. Into the rain, into the gray. That night, Clara sat on her bed in her cramped room above the auto garage. Smokey curled beside her, snoring faintly. Wet clothes hung from a chair, dripping. The only light came from a flickering street lamp outside the window. She refreshed her bank app. $42.12. Rent due in 10 days. No job, no insurance, no backup plan. But she had something else. Courage. And in a world that just spit her out for showing compassion, that felt like a kind of wealth. She picked up the dog tag again. Turner, Eli J. Serial number F472-. The rest was rubbed nearly smooth by time. She traced the name with her thumb, wondering where he had served, and why a nation that wrapped itself in flags had left him to rot under plastic sheets. The next morning, her world shifted again. She didn't even know a teenager had been filming. A grainy video, shaky, taken from a corner booth, made its way online. It showed Clara standing tall, Wayne's finger jabbing, his voice rising, her voice calm, steady. By noon, it went viral, but not in the way she hoped. Rules are rules. She made the boss look weak. Bet she's done this before. This is how places go bankrupt, by hiring bleeding hearts. Her co-workers ghosted her. One messaged her directly. "You're always trying to be the hero. How's that working out now?" She applied at 3 diners that afternoon. Not one called back. At the third, the manager looked at her, paused, then said softly, "We can't risk the attention, honey." Nothing personal. At another, the application was slid back across the counter before she even finished. By sundown, Clara wandered downtown. Damp, exhausted, aimless. The dog tag sat heavy in her coat pocket. She passed a bus shelter. And there, curled beneath a shredded plastic sheet, was Eli Turner, one arm over his chest, trying to sleep, breathing shallowly. She crouched beside him. He opened his eyes. "You again," he whispered. "Didn't expect anyone to come looking." Clara took off her coat and draped it over his legs. "Neither did I," she said. That moment didn't make the news. But the next one did. The next morning, when she returned with a thermos of soup and a pair of dry socks, there were already others waiting. 1 soldier, then 3, then 50. By noon, the entire block had filled with uniforms, veterans, off-duty officers, people who did remember. They didn't say much. They just stood, lined up in silent protest, outside the same diner that told her compassion wasn't profitable. Clara James didn't feed a man to be seen. She fed him because it was right. But now the world had seen, and it couldn't unsee it. His chest rose and fell slowly. One arm curled over that familiar paper bag, the other shielding him from a world that had long stopped noticing. Clara knelt beside him at the bus shelter. She placed a small bundle, half a sandwich wrapped in newspaper, gently beside his hands. "Thank you," she whispered, "for remembering me." Then she turned and walked away. She never saw the black military vehicle idling at the corner. Inside, a man in uniform watched her disappear into the morning fog and made a quiet phone call. Dawn. Just before sunrise, the rain stopped. Ridgefield, Kentucky, sat scrubbed clean and silent. Thin puddles reflected the gold of the waking sky. Storefronts remained dark. The smell of damp pavement hung in the air, along with something else. Anticipation. At exactly 6:45 a.m., it began. Not the sound of engines, not the shuffle of footsteps, the sound of presence. One by one, Black SUVs rolled into downtown Ridgefield, forming a quiet procession in front of Billy's diner. The first door opened. A man stepped out in a full army dress uniform, chest decorated, shoulders squared, posture like steel. He waited at the entrance. Then they came. From alleys, from side streets, from vehicles, soldiers, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. One by one, they lined the block in full uniform, standing in silent formation before the diner. No one needed to ask what was happening. Cars slowed. Pedestrians froze. Shopkeepers pressed their faces to glass. In a town where nothing ever happened, this was something. Inside the diner. Wayne Becker was restocking napkins when the doorbell jingled. He looked up and nearly dropped the glass in his hand. The officer stepped in, expression unreadable. "I'd like to speak to the owner." Wayne's voice cracked. I'm the owner." More people had begun to gather outside now, drawn by whispers and phones held high. The officer removed his cap. "My name is Colonel Matthew Turner, son of Eli Turner." The name landed like a thunderclap. Wayne opened his mouth. No sound came. Colonel Turner stepped forward, calm, steady, razor sharp. "The man you humiliated yesterday? He's the reason I'm alive." The diner fell deathly silent. In 2007, during my third tour in Iraq, our convoy was ambushed. My vehicle took the hit. 12 of us were trapped. That beggar carried me 3 miles, under fire, with shrapnel in his leg. Refused treatment until we were all safe. He pulled out a laminated citation. "The Silver Star. It's his." Wayne scanned the room, searching for sympathy. None came. My father refused help for years. After my mother passed, the PTSD worsened. He disappeared. We searched for months. He stepped closer, voice breaking. "And we find him here, fed, not by the system, not by this town, but by a waitress, one you fired." Gasps rippled through the crowd outside. Phones captured every word. Hashtags were already trending. Turner steadied his voice. "He pawned this medal once," he said, holding the Silver Star, "to feed a homeless family. Told me, medals don't feed the hungry." He nodded toward the door. "Bring her here." The salute. Clara heard the knock on her door above the garage. A breathless local reporter stood there. "You have to come. The soldiers, Colonel Turner. They're asking for you." Still half in disbelief, Clara followed. When she turned the corner onto Main Street, the soldiers parted. And then 200 salutes. One by one, they raised their hands to their foreheads. Uniforms crisp. Faces solemn. Clara froze. Her throat tightened. Her breath caught. But her grandfather's words rang in her heart. "Stand tall, even when you feel small." Colonel Turner stepped forward. In his hand, the medal. "My father wanted you to have this." Clara shook her head, trembling. I can't. It's not mine." Turner pressed it gently into her palm. "It is now." Aftermath. The fallout was swift. Billy's diner closed within a day. Suppliers cut ties, staff resigned, veterans groups picketed the steps. Wayne Becker vanished from Ridgefield before the week was out. But Clara made no speeches, no posts, no interviews. She just kept showing up. A new chapter. Within a week, a national veterans nonprofit offered Clara a position. Director of the Ridgefield Community Kitchen, a refurbished warehouse-turned-sanctuary where former soldiers peeled potatoes beside single mothers and teens ladled soup beside retired nurses. Clara ran it with quiet grace. And on the windowsill? Smokey, her one-eyed tabby, watched it all like a retired general. But one moment, one quiet afternoon, became just as powerful as that salute. A boy no older than 7 walked in. Sandy hair, oversized sneakers, in one hand a dollar bill, in the other a wax paper-wrapped cookie tied with string. He walked up to Clara. "I saw you in the video," he said. "My grandpa was a soldier too. He used to help people. So I want to help someone too." He placed the cookie and dollar on the counter. "Can I use this to help someone else?" Clara knelt, heart swelling, tears stinging the corners of her eyes. She didn't speak. She simply placed her hand over her heart and nodded. Eli Turner now lives under a real roof, gets regular care at the VA. His son visits often. Young soldiers sit with him, not for war stories, but for the quiet kind, the ones about dignity, and people who still see you. Clara visits too. Sometimes they just sit. They don't need words. She still carries his dog tag in her pocket. The silver star stays in a small wooden box by her bed. Sometimes, late at night, she runs her fingers across it and whispers the words her grandfather once said, "Honor isn't something loud. It's quiet." The Echo. This isn't just a story about a waitress and a veteran. It's about us, about kindness without cameras, courage without applause, and how sometimes the smallest act shakes the loudest walls. We want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed a moment like Clara's? Have you ever stood up when it wasn't easy? Tell us in the comments. Your story might be the light someone else needs. If this touched your heart, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Because here, we honor the quiet heroes. Not all heroes wear uniforms. Some wear aprons,